And so they're gonna expect and being at a bed hard, and somebody's private yard. It's 20 feet.
Oh, right, that's what I wanted to speak. They put in, here's where they have a place in the past.
Yeah, okay, so.
Yeah, it was just a lot of,
Always.
I enjoy working with people. Then,
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, what's the news that is?
so, this is what's looking like.
Yeah.
So.
Make fun.
We set it up.
That's what we.
And then Friday.
Great.
That was back then.
I know how much it.
For the most part.
You told me that.
I've been so busy.
Muted.
Hello, everybody. We're ready to get started, so please have a seat. So thank you all for coming. I think I have met everybody before, but I'm going to introduce myself anyway. I'm Zach Powers. I'm the Transportation and Land Use Chair for Cully Association of Neighbors. So I'll be the host facilitator for the meeting tonight. We also have Aaron Filipowski, our board chair, who's helping me. Thank you, Aaron. And special thanks to Aaron for bailing me out and setting up all the AV equipment. So thank you, Aaron. Always appreciate it. All right, and tonight we are going to have 4 topics. The agenda is packed. Ray Lee is going to be our first presenter, was a volunteer, but 3 others have to present. So we'll be here probably till 8:30. So tentative agenda is going to be first we're going to talk about hello, welcome. First topic up, we're going to talk about parking study that Portland Bureau of Transportation did as a follow-up from a meeting that Cully Association of Neighbors hosted about a year ago about congested parking pretty close to here around Cully Boulevard and Lindbergh Street. So Ray will present the findings from that study on what could be possible next steps on parking policy in that area. After that, we're going to have an introduction to an upcoming Bureau of Transportation project that won't start for a couple years, most likely. But they and I will be very tentative about the timeframe of that new project. We'll talk about the Cully and 57th Avenue Complete Street project. So that will be grant-funded traffic safety improvements and improved bus stops and crossings and other things on Cully Boulevard. Right around here, actually one end of the project, just at the intersection where Grace Bridge. And then we will have a presentation from probably Catherine or somebody else from Prosper Portland, the economic and development agency from the city, to talk about the action plan for the Cully Tax Increment Finance District. We can define that again for you later, but it's a property tax mechanism to make investments in the neighborhood. Active now, there's an action plan because it will be time to start spending some of that property tax money and the relatively 30-year program. So yeah, that's all relative. Doesn't happen fast. And then last we'll have Pauline Delgado from TriMet, who's going to give us another update on the 82nd Avenue Transit Improvement Project, which will include a new bus terminus in Cully and improved bus service that runs from Cully down out to 82nd and down to Clackamas Town Center. So we'll talk about that project, which has a big decision upcoming on they're not bus only, like essentially dedicated transit. Closest you're gonna get to dedicated transit. Okay, and I will facilitate, but we'll have a question and answer period for all these topics. So we'll have a presentation. For some of the presentation is going to be really short, but we'll make sure that we have plenty of time for your questions and comments. So now let me introduce Ray Stark from Peabody Parking. And thank you for coming.
Hey everyone, my name is Rayleigh Stark and I am with the Portland Bureau of Transportation. I am working on different parking management programs throughout the city. So new parking districts, new meter districts, new parking permit programs. So that's the sort of work that I do. So yeah, about a year ago, I attended this meeting and talked to some of the residents there that expressed that there was parking congestion around the Cully Triangle and some of the adjacent streets. And I'll show a map of the area that we looked at. So we did work with I did a little bit of outreach and I did some field work, did some data collection, and then I am coming back here to give you an update. Flip this one. Okay, so this was the area that we started with. And one thing that I want to note is that when we look at new parking management programs in the city, we are looking at a minimum area of about 100 block spaces. And we use block face as a metric, but when I say block face, we're kind of looking at the standard downtown 200 by 200 foot block. So it's equivalent to about 20,000 linear feet, so it's just different, you know, you can't really talk about block faces up here like you can downtown, so anyway, so we are looking at a minimum area. And we do that area because when we have a new program that starts, we have to look at new enforcement staff, so which is about three officers, I would say, depends on the details of the program. So, you know, when we are establishing a new program, we have to have this minimum because of the staffing we need. So this was approximately, including 60th and 72nd, this is about the minimum area that we needed. And also this was based on the feedback that I heard from the neighborhoods from the land use, I think it was land use and transportation committee, yeah, from this committee. And so this is the area I started with. Collected parking data within this area. That includes, we did an inventory of all the spaces, how many spaces. Each space is 20 feet, so that's where we got how we decided what a parking space was. And then we used data that was collected about the occupancy. Can you go to the next slide, please?
Yep.
Thank you. So the initial assessments, the data that we used was from 2024, not inventory, I would flood that. But it was done, this original occupancy was done for the Killingsworth, the new Killingsworth project that is supposed to wrap up this fall. For the bike lane, the paving and paint for Killingsworth. So generally that daytime occupancy was low, but that's what we heard. And the people were saying that it's at night, it's overnight, it's when people are coming home from work. That's when the occupancy was high. So if we look at the next slide, you can see, and I did not put a key on this, but I just want you to know just the red part, that was where there was lots of parking constraints. So it was, and this was 3 p.m. on Thursday. So this is when it's low occupancy. Or lower, so you can see the areas in blue, that means that it is 60% or less occupancy, so there's occupancy. If you go to the next slide, you can see it tightens up, parking is more constrained. So it's 79% occupied, and when we look at this metric, we can say, yes, this is constrained parking. However, it did seem like the parking constraint was pretty focused on Cully and the Cully Triangle, and where not the Las Abuelitas, but the name this. Yeah. It's focused around there. So it feels like the neighborhood has capacity for folks that live around there. There's still options. And then we do know though that this is a trend that we are dealing with throughout the city, that our city is densifying. And so we are figuring out, you know, where to fit this parking demand, how to fit it, how to reduce the demand. Let me get to the next slide. So in the end, I don't think that this is the right time for us to approach this project. A few things though. So the first thing is that it's really not a large enough area. We would have to look at both 60th and 72nd areas where there's not a lot of parking demand. And then just thinking about the potential cost of the permit. And when we come in to do parking management, it is it's anyone who is part of the system will be they will be impacted. So even people on, for example, some of the single family homes, like we don't, I know that there is, most of the demand is focused around where the family developments are, but we look at it as a whole. And so anyone who would be within the permit area, there would be different parking management strategies and limitations on those permits. So, for example, if you have a driveway, then you would not be eligible for a permit. Okay, so we really look at the existing area, the existing driveways, wherever there could be capacity, and that's where we let the cars park. So there are strategies that, you know, unfortunately, there's just not enough room for all the cars out there, and we do have to, there are ways that we strategize to reduce the number of cars on the street. Okay. The other thing is that it doesn't feel like the right time because the Via de Clara Vista is getting ready to redevelop over the next few years. And we'd like to just take a little bit more of a slower approach instead of coming in and working on a permit. Really working with Hacienda CDC, talking with them, and also if that is being redeveloped over the next few years, that is the time to engage with those residents too and figure out a whole, a more of a broader plan for the neighborhood instead of doing it an approach where we just are looking at it. And last slide. So, and also, I just want to say that our Peabody Community Engagement and Outreach Coordinator, she's probably on the call today. She's going to join virtually. So I'm working with her as well. She has a lot of connections in the Foley neighborhood. So we are thinking about this as more of a general community outreach approach and a long-term parking vision for the area. Okay, so in the meantime, my plan is to get connected with Hacienda CDC and then also stay up to date on the redevelopment plans and think further about what it would look like to do a neighborhood plan here. And then also, we are in the process of piloting new residential parking permit programs and different strategies there. So I'm going to continue to work on those and then use the lessons learned, we can take that away and bring that to this neighborhood.
Thank you. And I won't take all the question time, but I have one comment, one question. Aaron, could you go back to the slide with the map, please? Either of them is fine. But thanks. Okay. First one, Rayleigh mentioned the Bureau of Transportation project that has uncertain schedule. So the top of the map, Northeast Killingworth Street, the PBOT had a repaving project on that street. Often PBOT will use repaving as an opportunity to redesign and improve the street. But the Killingsworth one, PBOT did the repaving, but the scope was slightly different than they expected. I think they originally believed they're gonna have to take out all the asphalt, repave the entire thing, and it turned out the engineer said they could just remove and replace the car travel lanes, not the parking spaces or anything on the side. And I'm very disappointed, and I told them that they kind of just abandoned the street redesign and project. Probably three, 4 times I've checked in on schedule. It's always a couple months away. So I don't want to be cynical and make it sound like it'll never happen or hopeless for it. But it is more than a year after they were supposed to. So that will change the parking configuration on many of those blocks, and that's why that's what that project is, the Killingsworth Street repaving. The repaving is done. PBOT says they will still come back and do. And then one narrower thing I wanted to ask you about, Rayleigh, that you communicated to me, was on Emerson. It's like at the middle of the map with the 3 streets that are highlighted. East of Cully, there's some 1 hour parking. Yeah, thank you. 1 hour parking signs that you mentioned to me. I think basically nobody knows where those came from or why they're there. Right. Okay. So do you have any plan to remove, change, do anything about the 1 hour parking signs?
Yeah, so there is 1 hour parking on the south side of Emerson, and it is not what we would typically use 1 hour parking for. We would usually put it in front of shops that needed that fast turnover. But yeah, just on the south side of Emerson, there are 1 hour signs that we have done digging. I can't find a history of. So I am going to work with our parking control team to have them removed because it doesn't meet any standards why we would have that in front of, in a residential area. So, when, I don't know what the timeline is, but we will be reached to the adjacent neighbors though.
Okay, thanks. Bring my up.
Okay. I have several, questions and a comment. Parking enforcement, 57th and Killingsworth. You turn on there, there's no parking in this block. You'll always find at least one car parked there, and it, makes it kind of tight through there. A fire engine would have a little problem and things like that. Another problem in our area is cars parked up to the curbs. We have a problem at Trinity, is they park very close to our driveway, and it is hard to get in and out with cars coming and going and things like that. How many feet from a driveway do they have to park back?
I do not know that answer. I always thought it was I mean, I am not in parking enforcement. I always thought it was for the wheel. I don't know how to say that. I mean, I just thought it was. I don't know.
It's a number of feet.
Is it?
At least at that point, but other points also, it would be nice to have a sign 55th, going north. There's a couple areas where they have a sign, and maybe I should just measure that. But, yes, I think the biggest problem on parking in this area is enforcement. When I see something like that, I call in and nothing happens. Okay,
Hey, Lenny, since you said you have a few,
Yeah.
if anybody else has questions, we'll come back to you. Yeah.
Find out each. Oh, people.
that's what it's on wireless.
Hello, thank you for being here. My name is Elias. My question is, how many different times did you take data at 9 PM to get that number of 79%? On multiple different evenings, there's time when it's really packed. So I'm just curious, how many samples did you take to get that number?
And I can send this, the full sheet. So we did 3 different days. And each day it started at, it was every 3 hours. So it was like 9, 12, 3, 6, 9 for 3 days. And that's how it was, yeah.
Consecutive days?
It was, I want to say it was either a Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, or something like that. I know the day that it's 79%, I know that was on a Thursday.
Eric, I can check with anybody on Zoom.
But easy. No can or chat.
Good evening, thank you so much for being here, my name's Anad. Could you help me look at the map that had the 3 colors? Could you just redefine what the 3 colors meant?
Aaron. The man.
Okay. All right, so when we look at parking demand, we are looking at it on a scale. So I wish I would have put a T on here, I'm sorry. Anything red is 85% and above. So that occupied. So if we're looking at a block of 10 cars, so that's, yeah, that means that there's only 1 spot left. And our goal is to always have, have 2, maybe 3 spots available. So, okay, so 85% is the red. The yellow is 60 to 84%. Then there's another color, light blue. It's not showing up in this one. That one, I want to say, is somewhere under that. And then the dark blue is like probably anything under blue. 50% or something along those lines. I don't know exactly, since I don't have it in front of me, but it goes from blue to red, and the red is the most constrained, so that's saying that there is probably one spot available.
And then how is it defined when you have like the overflow? I'm looking very specifically at the, Pelly where we see red, Pelly Boulevard and then at the T.
Yeah.
So it's showing, 80% occupied. Do you have any indication of where the additional cars are going?
So yeah, when I was out there, I definitely noticed that there were more cars than spaces available. So if there was, like, for example, on Killingsworth, there's the bike lane. And at the end of the street, there's like probably 3 or so cars that were parked where there actually weren't legal spots. So I would not want those. So there's probably sections that are even over 100%. There's probably, where there's 10 legal spots, but well, for the most part.
And I just wanted, this is not a question, but a comment. The experience that we have in the neighborhood is around, I feel you on parking control and ticketing, but I'm gonna say that it is really penalizing communities that are unable to find parking. It's an $85 ticket where they're squeezing their cars in. So I would really suggest and highly promote more education about parking rules. Why do we have them? To really speak in the terms of safety so that individuals can start making decisions with this additional information. That's one statement I would make. And then also, I'm just really befuddled by that whole blue part on Killingsworth.
Right here?
Yeah, did I get that right? Blue is low
Low.
occupancy.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, how do you count?
Okay, and not anything forward on that at all.
I want to give them credit is due for this ongoing consistency. I'm just really befuddled. I just can't believe that.
Yeah.
From 64 to 60, but the digits really accurate. Or as to the point here too, I'm like, like how many times, what time was that done? Could have been a blue moon when everything was gone, because that is not reconciled. But again, thank you so much for being here and follow up. Patient and reinforcement.
Also, not a city level data collection, but when we started this topic last year, I don't buy frequently, so that's correct. I know it's very different if you're there cleaning up, right? Definitely looks different when I talk to people who live in the area than if I go by once a week, sometimes once a week, right, through those areas just bike ride. We'll sometimes get so full, some of those blocks are full all the time. I don't see it. Now, on Killingsworth Street, the red bricks up there, again, my stuff anecdotal, every time I go by them, it's full, like Brady said, I'm on a bike, there's one car. The other places, we get neighborhood association comments on them, essentially says it's full all the time. I don't think I know what caregivers do there all the time, and I think like Brady said, for me, if there are
cost of the maintenance, and that what we found is it doesn't, it still ends up with about the same amount of data. One thing though that does help is, so my comment was based on when you do each individual stall. I will say for safety, at the edges so that you don't park to the intersection like that. So there's two reasons why we would paint those lines, and the lines on the edge to go to so that someone knows where they should have parking over and help safety situation for
And anecdotally, was there any information collected in relationship to whether people felt safe or had experiences parking in neighborhoods? I know that there's been a few instances where folks from different properties have parked in communities of interactions that have not been nice. And some territorialness around whether you should be parking. Anybody else has heard of that happening? But is that a part anecdotally of what you looked at all? Did anybody report anything or neighbors talk to about that? Right, don't park in front of my house, you need to park over there. Just discomfort with being in a neighborhood where they may be targeted because they're parking.
So, I need to really put it on each. I imagine that's why the 1 hour parking signs are on the south side of Emerson. That's my only. Yeah, the only thing that makes sense to me that's probably why, they were installed in the first place, but yeah, that does not go, it's not in alignment with any of our practices right now. If we do a larger, parking study and plan here, one of the things that we do is a perception survey or, where we actually go out into the neighborhood, called like an intercept survey, where we talk to people. So if we do a longer vision project in the neighborhood, that's something that we do.
Sorry, I got to follow up to that. That is, I'm good, with small. Because we have the multiple things happening, there's the 82nd plan where we saw red here, where now there's gonna be a bus coming through, so there's not gonna be parking there, correct? And we have the redevelopment that's taking place that possibly is gonna impact parking. Is that kind of evaluation already being considered and a part of where we're headed? Because if it's not, it seems like this is the time where folks should be talking to neighbors around what that looks like and what the experience is, so that those projects are moving forward with information from.
Yeah, so they're definitely on our radar, as they'll impact parking. I know both projects, I don't, if the Killingsworth, I'm not sure an update on the Killingsworth project, but I know both that and the TriMet Terminus.
Yeah.
It will remove parking on Killingsworth, so that is something that is on our radar when it comes to looking at the area for parking management. And I know a little bit about the stages for the redevelopment of the Via de Clara Vista. And we have some time for that, and I think as some residents are moving, as I feel like that seems like the right time for like behavior change and thinking about what the needs are for residents in the neighborhood.
I was on a focus group with TriMet, their VDOT representatives on the bus terminus that's part of that transit project. And we'll have TriMet here later, who probably can answer questions, but just to let you know, I promise you, parking discussed extensively in front of TriMet and those other agencies. one of my contributions to the focus group was to direct it so we didn't only talk about. It's probably that contribution there. Be it declared, at least the different, we don't have anybody here to represent that. But at least in the Rickerville residential project and both in Portland and Morgan, they're not responsible for providing any certain amount of parking. There are no, so it doesn't mean they don't consider it. They have parking as part of the project, but they don't have any responsibility to provide certain money. Yeah. I may not have asked correctly, I haven't had anyone getting something from that project. They're not, also not obligated. All right, Lenny, we'll finally back to you.
Okay. Remember when, they went a space and a half of parking per unit, now it's only one space. I had somebody come to me and they were in, big parking place where the bicycle lane was between the car and the sidewalk. And their son opened up the door. And almost got a bicycle in the back seat. I strongly feel that that type of control is very unsafe. Couple reasons is people in wheelchairs getting out, people unloading their children, groceries will block their bicycle lane. Speaking of which, I very seldom see a bicycle on Killingsworth. They're all on my street, Simpson. That I have no problem with. I'd like to see this rethought, and as far as the way it is now, I see no problem with that. And the plus side of having the bicycle lane where it is, that you can come out and no bicycles, you can come out and look down and see that there are no cars coming. But if you have a car or a pickup or a truck sitting there, you can't see. And I feel there's no need for that, and I feel they're very unsafe. Handicapped people getting out of the cars, things like that. You know, we're used to getting out on the right side. That's how we pack our cars and the kids and everything. You know, you go to the grocery store and you have the groceries on the right side. You open up the door, carry a couple bags in or to the porch, come back and get the rest or get the kids. And I really feel it's unsafe. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I am in parking, so I do not look at street design. I can, however, get us your request information and maybe someone from our traffic engineering or street design team can respond or.
I gave the information about 2 years ago. And I have a response.
Look, I've had good luck with it, so I will definitely, great person to do, okay?
All right, Laney, I know you, we have talked about that a bit.
Yeah.
With the project manager for the Killingsworth Street repaving, where there will, you're talking about the parking protected by. Yeah. Right, okay, yes, so I don't know if you had a chance to come to one of the meetings where the project manager discussed that. We have passed on your feedback on that before. So I would say, her name is Mimi Phillips, if you want to contact her, but come with some facts, come with some safety facts. I disagree with you about that one, but always open to changing my mind, I'm sure Mimi is too. Come with some safety facts about the parking protection.
Okay, I'm retired from the city of Portland.
Great.
And I've worked as an engineer. I found once I get something.
I'm gonna move on this one, so if you come with some back, I'm not saying I'm any more qualified than you, but definitely bring some safety. Rick, I want to put you on the spot, Rick, I know you said you wanted to ask some parking related questions, do you still want to do that, or you want to try to ask about your topic if you're not comfortable with it? I just want to give you a chance since you mentioned.
Not.
But would you like to try? We have time, if you'd like, you can say no. I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spot.
I think my question is. Well. Oh, that's a question as much. So I'm on a street where there are no sidewalks and a long stretch with no cross streets. So from Cully to 63rd. So that's what, 6-ish blocks maybe or more. And there's a new cottage cluster that was built and is now there's 11 new homes that have no parking at all. And then but longer term, there are several other large lots with the potential for more of those. With the potential of more housing and no parking and this is also on Mason Street where there's no or where it's supposed to be the greenway. So also a lot of pedestrian movement, walking to school. There's a school several blocks down the street. There's and then the potential more bikes and just not a lot of. There's already not a lot of available parking on the street. And I'm just wondering longer term, I can't imagine a timed, like what was being discussed for the timed parking, but I guess maybe it's just a bigger question, not even parking as much as just development and how to accommodate all of that in a safe way to accommodate.
What's the plan for parking, basically?
Parking, yeah, that is gonna impact pedestrians and bikes and yeah.
What street are you talking about?
It's Mason Street.
Well, I can give you an example of an area that we've been managing parking for just over 10 years, the Northwest Parking District. So that area is the Slab Town and the Nob Hill area. And that area has seen growth. There's a lot more units, a lot more people that live there. And we have continually seen a decrease in parking. And we do that through different strategies for our parking permit program. So there's limits to how many permits you can have, and it's pretty nuanced, but there's a whole bunch of things that you should not, if you move into that neighborhood, you should not expect to have a parking permit. And so I know that area is very central. And yes, we have been working in that area for years. So we manage parking, but then the other side of that is that we have programs in place to support people to take other roads. So we have a transportation wallet that helps fund TriMet passes, bike town passes, things like that. We have put money towards the line 24 so that operates more frequently. And other things like that. So any of the money that comes in, not all of it, but a portion of it, that revenue that comes in from parking is then reinvested back into the neighborhood to support people taking other roads. So we kind of do it two ways. We try to reduce the demand for parking, and then on the other side, it becomes more expensive to park. But that's how we manage the parking and overall system. So we're not there yet in this neighborhood, but that's exactly what we would do. And the latest neighborhood that we're gonna parking measure plan is the Northeast neighborhood. So that is Boise and Elliott. We're looking at like Mississippi, Williams, Vancouver. So we will be doing the same sorts of things in that neighborhood because right now it's just very hard for people to park, and especially people visiting the businesses and wanting to hop into a store. They can't find a spot. And so for for the vitality of businesses too, it's like really important to keep those spaces available. So that is just like how we do it, and I could see a scenario where that we work on a plan like that for the neighborhood.
Okay, we were talking, Rayleigh, thanks very much for coming and thanks for carrying out the study. We appreciate you following up on it. And thanks for your time.
Thank you.
To slide deck number 2. Okay. All right, okay, thanks. Come on up, please. Okay, so our second topic is about upcoming project. This is not officially in a public feedback period yet, but I did warn our presenters that they'll probably get some. And yeah. So please welcome the staff for the Coley 57 Complete Street Plan. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, everyone. My name is Sean Kenny. I'm a city transportation planner, on the area planning and project development team. With me is David Hamilton, who is the project manager for the project. So I'll be leading community engagement through the 30% design stage on this project, and then you'll see his face a lot more often as we get closer to construction. I'll mention just real quick before we change slides that this project is partially funded through a Portland Clean Energy Community Fund benefits, the PSEF grant. And then Metro also helped fund the project through their regional flexible funds allocation grant. Next slide, please. Thank you. So goals of the evening essentially is just to share information about this project. It's been a little bit of time since we applied for that RUFA grant. Discussing the opportunities that we're designing and then exploring for the street itself. And then learning from you about what priorities and needs we should consider as we are doing that design. So as we said, no feedback. Feedback is definitely welcome if we have time for it. I'll also I have my card as well. So if anybody would like my contact information afterwards, by all means, we can continue the conversation. Thank you. So today, Coley 57th, we're, as far as project extents, we're talking Prescott to the north and Klickitat to the south. Klickitat being the southernmost boundary for the project extent because it connects to a greenway on Klickitat that heads east-west. You all already probably know the conditions are like on Coley and 57th Avenue, but Coley itself is quite a wide main street, between 64 and 66 feet wide between curbs, and then 57th Avenue, of course, is pretty wide as well. I use curbs there for the 52 to 54 feet because, of course, on one side there is no curb next to that cemetery. And then the bike lanes themselves are either buffered or entirely unbuffered, so there's no protection for them at all. Curb type sidewalks are very narrow or missing on each side of Northwest 57th Avenue, and that alternative walkway on the west is separated just using those tubular markers, which we've gotten a lot of feedback about already as being insufficient. The actual crossings of the street do not meet our spacing standards for pedestrian crossing improvements, and accessible ramps or ADA ramps are either non-existent entirely or not to our current standards. Next slide, please. This, of course, leads to streetscape that offers pretty wide spaces for cars to speed much faster than the posted speed limit. Significant challenges for pedestrians to safely or comfortably cross the street or walk along it. Poor quality, and as a result of being poor quality and unprotected, underutilized bike lanes, and then a lack of accessibility due to those sidewalk widths themselves. They're not mobility device compliant. There's, of course, a significant limitation to tree canopy or greening on the street currently, and all of this creating a pretty loud and unpleasant streetscape environment depending on the time of day. That makes it a pretty unpleasant place to be despite it being your neighborhood's main street. Next slide, please. As far as crash and speed patterns, again, you all might already know some of this. There's a significantly troubling pattern of serious crashes on Coley. It is not part of our high crash network, but that does not mean that there aren't significant numbers of crashes that occur. Between 2016 and 2023, there were 18 Vision Zero crashes in the project area, including one fatality which involved a pedestrian. The crashes, of course, have involved pedestrians, bicycles, and vehicles as well. These are some hot spots of recent crashes. One of them being Northeast Coley near the Albertsons driveway. Two crashes recently have involved pedestrians due to a lack of crossing there or lack of a safe refuge for pedestrians who decide to jaywalk because there's so much space between those crossings. And then Northeast Fremont and 57th, there's a pattern of left turns east-west from Fremont or north-south, leading to crashes with vehicles. And then, of course, that Coley curve is what we're calling it, where it turns into 57th there. Those tubular markers often gets knocked over, and that there's a historical pattern of cars actually hitting that. Yes, that's right. Why am I getting? Yes, ma'am.
I mean, if I, what is the tubular?
Tubular delineator markers is just those little plastic tubes that stick up out of the ground that
Candle.
can sticks, yeah.
They're tiny here, but
Sorry, that's not a great photo because. Definitely,
And
absolutely.
when you hit them, makes a funny noise too.
It makes a funny noise. They fall in our maintenance folks complain about having to replace them pretty regularly, and people complain about how ugly they are. So we certainly hear you. And then big pieces that we did look at speeds in the area as well, and 85th percentile speeds, which is how we do most of our engineering considerations for speed limits are high as 37 miles per hour along the corridors. Those are pretty. None of this is surprising. It's letting you know that we hear you and we see this. As far as policy background, this plan and the issues have really been known for quite some time. Of course, there were some improvements that were done somewhat recently, I think about a decade ago. A lot of those issues were defined in the Coley Commercial Corridor and Local Street Plan back in 2012, which was done with BPS. It is also in our transportation system plan. So this project itself will complete the southern portion of that project. And then a big point to make just from a policy perspective is that we absolutely understand that this street is very important for all modes. That it is a neighborhood main street. Coley itself is in a pedestrian district. So we should definitely prioritize pedestrian and bicycle safety, but then we should also make sure that our emergency uses, transit access, traffic and freight uses can still access and move through to the existing land uses and destinations in the area that they need to. Next slide, please. So the project elements themselves, a little loose currently because we're still in preliminary design, but we're looking at improving that walkway on the west side of Northwest 57th Avenue, that current alternative walkway that exists there. We're not sure if we can afford a full sidewalk there, but we can certainly make improvements at minimum. On the east side of 57th Avenue, it would be widening the sidewalk to meet ADA standards, so a much wider space for pedestrians to use between Failing and Fremont. And then for the entire corridor between Prescott and Fremont, all necessary accessibility upgrades, so adding ramps to those intersections. The bikeway as well would be protected for the entire corridor to Klickitat where feasible. There may be a few constraints just because of the existing right-of-way width, but we'll do our best to make sure that we can introduce as much protection as possible. It's likely that a portion of that will be parking protected, but I'm also happy to talk to you about what that looks like now. It's a little different. We have much wider buffers than we used to actually offer a safe door opening opportunity for people getting out on the right side versus just opening into the actual throughput for the bikes and risking crashes or risking interactions. On top of that, we're looking at adding enhanced pedestrian crossings in the vicinity of Northeast Failing and Northeast Skidmore streets, and enhanced transit stops at Northeast Mason Street that are ADA compliant, and then rebuilding that traffic signal at Fremont, which is significantly super old and very deficient. Next slide, please. Yes, go for it, of course.
So at Mason Street, and they put the curve thing and there was a marked pedestrian crosswalk.
Yes.
But there it's not effective. And I guess the city different people and others in the city for years about a traffic light, which has been a big no, but why not just even the flashing light to
So we do have.
That's where the fatality was.
That was really fatality. So we have like a standard flow chart that describes where we end up putting signals and or where our rapid flashing beacons end up being located. It's something that I could definitely look into for that intersection specifically, but I do know that as far as trying to at least improve the conditions somewhat, we're trying to visually narrow the road as much as we can to really force cars to slow down. Part of that will be adding those transit platforms. That's not not a solution immediately, but if our goal is to essentially narrow the travel routes as much as possible to force cars to move more slowly through the entire corridor. In order to try to avoid those crashes as much as possible, but certainly something we can explore as well, given we're already making some improvements to that intersection anyway. Some other things that we're exploring are kind of pedestrian, where those new crossings will be located, will likely add pedestrian refuge islands. Those will potentially have some greening elements like we've done on 82nd Avenue recently, where underground utilities will allow us to do so. Also considering some strategic median locations, not extensive stretches like 82nd Avenue, but some that can offer some additional pedestrian refuge opportunities for folks who do decide to jaywalk across the street. And if it is possible to offer greening elements there as well, we'll certainly explore that. These are just some ideas currently.
Sean?
Yes.
Oh, excuse me. Using curb zone where feasible. So is that the furnishing zone between the sidewalk and the curb?
That is, the curb zone is actually the zone where on-street parking is located. So not the furnishing zone, but between the curb and the travel lane.
Okay.
So on Northeast Fremont Street at 57th, we're looking at adding left turn pockets with dedicated left turn signals as well to solve those crash problems. And then some bicycle and pedestrian protection enhancement along that Coley curve. Specifically, there will be protection along the entire thing, but are really looking at enhancing what level and like breadth and heft of protection that we can put along that curve, knowing that there have been a lot of issues there historically. And then that Green Street and street trees is, we're looking at exploring. There are always constraints with underground utilities as to what we can plant in the right of way, but we have been exploring on other projects, essentially reallocating space for parking, like underutilized parking spaces strategically, and turning those into tree wells or greening opportunities to help increase the tree canopy. They also serve the function of helping protect the bike lane when those parking areas are being underutilized, because parking protection only really functions as a protected bike lane when those cars are there. So offering
would it might it include swales?
Swales will be triggered as part of the project as well. So anytime we repave anything at 500 square feet or more, we trigger the city stormwater manual, and that will require on-site stormwater remediation. What that looks like, again, depends on what our final survey comes back as. If we have significant constraints underneath the ground, there may not be that many of them, but we will put them where we're required to, and the stormwater manuals require a decent amount of them as well.
Okay.
What is, are there plans on what's happening with the parking at that intersection?
We're currently looking at that right now. So we've just done some parking analysis to see what utilization rates are like. So our plan is essentially to do a little bit of parking analysis about some trade-offs, see what utilization is like, look a little bit more in depth at what spillover possibility there is in the neighborhood, just to see what we have to work with to create a preliminary design that then we will come back to you all with. And that's something that we can refine as well. So we don't have a plan for that intersection as of yet, but we are exploring ways to conserve parking if possible, where possible, especially adjacent to those existing more historic land uses of commercial there, knowing that there are pretty limited options. Yes, sir.
Yes, there are quite a few curbside businesses along there that the only way they can you can go to them is by curbside parking. I went to a restaurant on Coley Boulevard, and I had a hard time finding a parking spot on that one, as it sits now.
Yes, sir. I definitely appreciate that and can understand that it's challenging from time to time. We're not looking at any significant, as far as in the commercial area, large scale reduction overall in the project area of parking. There will be some, certainly, but that's something that we, again, will do an analysis of and exploration of as well. And especially knowing the realm of commercial conditions right now and how businesses are feeling, I want to have chats with those businesses themselves too, to see what it is that their parking and loading needs are, so that we can accommodate those while also balancing the needs of bikes and pedestrians. Yes.
Today, so you're in the preliminary design stage, do you know what the timeline,
Yep.
estimated timeline is?
Happy.
In there?
So, it's perfect timing. So we're in this sharing and learning phase right now. So essentially just reintroducing the project to folks, getting initial feedback on what we're working on and how you're feeling, if there's anything that's missing. And then we'll work on developing a concept design, and we'll bring that concept design back. And that concept design is something that we can refine as needed, respond to your feedback and input. That'll happen in the spring of next year, and then we'll work on some final engagement as far as project development is concerned in late spring in May and June, and then work on the final scope refinements there. At that point, I'll be handing the project over to David Hamilton, who's the PM, and he'll be getting it through the more advanced design stages for construction. So we try to lock our scope as much as possible by 30% design so that we can really make sure that we deliver it on time and under budget. But it will be a pretty intensive engagement process that we'll be working on starting kind of in January through June next.
One more hand, right? So,
Yeah, is now an appropriate time to just share?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you for this is great. One thing that I noticed is that's like the bike lane on that curve is like all the same. So because we're actually just starting in it. Oh.
Mainly for the folks on Zoom.
oh, there goes. Yeah. And then like with the bollards in there now, it just like it seems to be even more for the breeze. I'm just hoping that in whatever the design concept that you're considering that, like whether, you know, it's maintenance, like the street sweeper doesn't seem to access that. So
Definitely, thank you. Yeah, so our design would require that our smaller street sweepers fit within the bike lanes or the bike lane / pedestrian zone that's being created on that side of the street. And typically what our protection looks like now is not those tubular markers by themselves, but it's kind of like a square cut curve that's just under a foot tall. So it creates like a clear line versus something that has to be cleaned around just next to.
I can be really quick. But first, yeah, you know, I appreciate it. But I just want to make sure that it was.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
I have two more. The other one is like we're just south of the fire on the mountain parking lot. The bike lane bumps out and there's often when people parking there, like trying to squeeze in one more parking spot into the bike lane. And it's already like a harrowing experience to like have to like blindly pull into under traffic with that car. So hopefully like there's some sort of remediation, there's something that could occur there.
You're saying where it connects from Klickitat north on 57th, it curves around
Where you're
existing point
heading south on 57, you pass the stoplight, you go past the fire on the mountain.
Yeah.
Parking lot, and then starts after their curb cut. And so then the bike lane has to then bump out into traffic. Well, it feels like they're bumping.
Definitely, you know, definitely. Yeah, so our standards for that area would be to try to do parking protection if it would fit, likely will result in probably parking removal in that area, but again, it'll be a conversation trade-off there. We do know that all of the houses that are located there do have off-street parking available to them for that block. But we, of course, haven't started engagement yet, but we are looking at making it so that you would not have to do.
And then, oh, sorry.
Just
Folks online cannot hear, folks. If you are able to come to the microphone a little closer, we might be able to hear you.
For everyone online who is asking if we can utilize hurdles instead of curves, which are kind of a round big bollard that's shorter, I think, is what you're defining as. I don't think that we use those now. Design a 5 minute absolutely.
And then just my last quick, that big intersection of seven and Fremont, there are like telephone poles that like kind of around that speed, those. I've experienced both in and far, like how much that kind of creates a blind spot as you're running. And I've actually seen like people get hit or coming out of theaters there or running across the street, so. I, obviously that's like a whole other ballpark, but I don't know if there's any, I don't really need that.
Are you referring to the utility poles that are on 57 themselves? Are you referring to the utility poles that are on 57? Yeah, so typically we can in a project require that utility companies do a relocation as part of our project. The problem with these is that they are incredibly high voltage lines, so the actual cost to relocate them is astronomical. So it's unrealistic that it can be part of this project that we can help them or that they can even afford to move them or that we can force them legally to move them. But we are exploring like bumping the sidewalk out a little bit to the west there, for example, which would shift all the lanes over a bit just to help improve visibility a little bit and also to offer a bit more space for pedestrians in that really narrow right of way. Because we have to figure out how to make that at least ADA compliant so that a mobility device can use that sidewalk anyway. Yeah.
Okay, and Lanny, sorry I cut you off. I'm doing a bad job facilitating not bringing the mic right. Did you have another question or comment?
Zach, real quick, if just let people know online if they have a question, just to type it in the chat, and if there's any issues in the chat, if we have any more issues.
Okay, yeah,
Just let
actually,
them
do
know.
we have any on Zoom? Any questions?
But ask them to put in the chat.
Okay. Okay. All right, did you have more slides?
Oh, my next slide I think is just it just has some contact information on it. So for folks online especially, I have cards here as well for anybody like one. I think my contact information might also be on that large postcard that I handed out, but just wanted to make sure folks had a way to access us if they wanted to.
Then back to schedule, so definitely not a question, but feedback from hosting PBOT at neighborhood association events. PBOT, you have been great about this kind of notification, project is in early stage, and then also great about the project is happening. So I've only talked to a couple of capital project managers about it. Would love if you could notify neighborhood association, like at a milestone. I know this is very far away, but at the point where you accept a bid for construction, it seems like that's what really triggers a fixed schedule. And that has been great to know for the neighborhood, essentially. Otherwise, the experience, it doesn't come up with every project where there's, some need for input or communication in that period, but often it feels like we learned about the project and then 3 years later, it suddenly happened. So I don't know that there's any need for, any neighborhood input between accepting the bid and starting, but anyway.
Yeah,
feedback.
That's actually great. We can definitely coordinate on some minimum email notification about e-phases, especially if there's a major gap between our anticipated, reaching a point in project development. Like we're talking about a concept that's really cool, and then engineering and design gets delayed, and suddenly it takes 3 years for us to break ground. And then folks are like, "Where did this come from? What's going on?" So it's great feedback, and definitely happy to continue this project and let some folks know that area in project planning as well.
Overall, even when it starts suddenly, everybody's happy that it's happening.
Yeah, I'd like to hear that.
Okay, PMOT is on a very tight budget, very tight. Is there a chance that these projects will be delayed coming up?
This project, no. So we have money set aside for this project, and a portion of that money is funded by Metro through the regional flexible fund allocation, which actually has a deadline. So we actually have a fire underneath ourselves to actually deliver it in a timely manner. What budget constraints can mean with inflation is that sometimes the scope elements of the project itself might change and might be refined as we move forward and get a more refined cost estimate, which is why we are here describing it very conceptually, because we want to make sure that what we're talking about is feasible before we start showing people a concept plan. But we will certainly build something here, or we will lose quite a bit of money from Metro. So this one's at least quite safe.
Not a question, but an invitation. We are going to be having our 3rd annual Cully Bike Fair in June. And would love for y'all to come and be a part of that. We already work with PBOT, and have them come be a part of it, but would love to see this project be presented in that space as well. If you'd like to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'd love to follow up with you about that, because I think it'll be a pretty key time to share about the project again as well.
Thanks for coming. I'm glad you've moved this project along more quickly than some of those Metco funded projects. Where we had one that was funded in 2012, and by 2024, the 5 things that were to be done with it came down to sidewalk infill on Killingsworth and Prescott, and nothing else, because of inflation. So, yeah, move it along. I'm disappointed that you having already to take out a full sidewalk on the west side of 57th. The illegal slats in the chain link fence at the cemetery there, which they can't have that because they're site obscuring and that's an open space. But there was an agreement to let them have it until there's a site. Doesn't sound like there's going to be a site.
It's highly unlikely. We haven't written it out entirely, but we did have some engineers look at it. We haven't gotten the survey back, but it looks like because of the grade there, that there would be significant building and retaining wall that we would have to construct, which just eats so much of the budget up so quickly that it becomes a question of what it is that we hope to produce as far as transformation versus priorities. But happy to offer updates as we move forward on that.
We'll try to persuade the zoning enforcement folks that an approved walkway is a sidewalk and they need to take out their slats.
That's actually a pretty good strategy.
All right, then I'm asking on behalf of one of our neighborhood association board members who's not here, the one I emailed about. So long ago, when another planner from PBOT, Zeph Wagner, first talked to the neighborhood association about this project, some people in the neighborhood asked about the possibility of essentially improving that 5-point intersections of Cully, 60th, Prescott, and Zeph, not promised, mentioned the idea of possibly closing traffic coming into the intersection at that on Northeast 60th was what he had suggested to think about. Again, not promised. So similar to 5-point that Sandy, Alameda, and 57 traffic closed coming one way in. Is there a possibility something like that could be under consideration as part of the scope of Cully 57 project?
That's a great question. I did talk to Deb about that specifically after you emailed us about it. That is still on my team, still he's a senior planner. So serving an advisory role on it. Has more knowledge on the product area than I do currently. Hopefully I'll get more and more familiar with the area as well. I'm spending time here and spending time with folks like you. But so that not promised but idea, it's not something that we could feasibly add to the scope of this project just because of concerns of financial constraints. But that doesn't mean that we can't look at exploring some sort of quick build pilot opportunity in the next, in a short term timeline. So hearing that there's still interest there, Zev and I were talking about what we might be able to explore as far as strategies for submitting potential pilots for the project in the next year or few years to see, because the one on Alameda 57 started as a quick build missing links pilot. So we have a little bit of programming funding that we can do, painting in those tubular delineators or candlesticks as treatments. So do want to differentiate it from this project just so that we can really hone in on the scope and spend the money as much as possible there. But definitely want to say that we hear you and that we're happy to work with you. I'm happy to fall on what it looks like to see what we can move forward in that way as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I think we have time for one more, if anybody has another question or comment for Sean and David. Well, if you have any for 2 more minutes, Lanny asked earlier about parking protected bike lanes and potential safety hazards from them. You mentioned that you are an expert on it. What can you tell us about
I wouldn't say that I'm an expert because I'm not an engineer, but I do know a little bit. So we, as an example, in spaces where we've done parking protection, I'm using an example because it's a project that I was very familiar with, was on Rosa Parks as an example, in North Portland. Where we essentially added parking protection, but there was the bike lane itself is barely buffered, if buffered at all, from the car door zone on the right side of cars. Our current engineering standards now require that there be a 2 to 3 foot buffer there to compensate, to actually handle the car door opening and for a person stepping out without the risk of cutting off or getting hit by a bicycle. So it does create a little bit of an island zone. It's not an ideal solution, but it's definitely something that our engineers require that we look at first when we do park protection. So it's our standard now here. So it certainly impacts the amount of parking spaces we can fit, and in widths it starts impacting some things too, because we can only put so much within curb to curb on a street. But we definitely have standardized adding a buffer whenever possible between the parking space and the bike lane next to the curb.
Okay, well, thank you, Sean and David, for the presentation and for your time, and we look forward to talking to you again when you're ready for the official public feedback period.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing something.
Anything that comes up between now and then, I know it's the holidays, but send me an email. Happy to talk to you about it. Happy to hop on a phone call with you about it as well.
And Aaron, I think I saw you receiving slides on you.
Kelly did. Yeah.
Okay. All right, topic of the Cully TIF district that I mentioned at the beginning. So please welcome Brian from Prosper Portland, and thank you, Brian, for coming.
All right, good evening, everyone. Hi, I'm Brian Moore. I'm a development manager with Prosper Portland. And what that means is I help my team of about 8 people cover many of the TIF districts, the tax increment finance districts that we have across the city, including Cully, Gateway, 82nd Avenue, the Sumner Park Rose, Fargate, Columbia corridor, as well as the West Side TIF district and the South Waterfront or the North Macadam TIF district. You get me this evening. You were supposed to have our community liaison, but due to a number of factors, there's a bunch of meetings happening tonight. You get stuck with me, so hopefully I can entertain you for 15 minutes or less. I don't know, 15 minutes or more.
Paulina from TriMet may be late, so if you want more, you can potentially have more.
Well, I think the more is definitely going to be up to all of you because of your questions. The briefing that I was given about what we're presenting this evening is a short presentation about the community engagement that we've been doing most recently for the Community Leadership Committee. That is the committee of folks such as yourself that were appointed by the City Council and the Prosper Portland Board to represent all of you to guide priorities for how Prosper Portland and Portland Housing Bureau make investments in Cully over the next 5 years. This slide deck goes through some of the community engagement that was done, including the survey, a set of surveys. So that one of the main things that our community liaison did was they put together an online survey and sent that out to folks. And this is brutally small. Even I have to get close to read this, so I'm sure none of you can. So this top one says, how are you connected to Cully? So the idea was wanting to know from the survey recipients, what's their relationship to Cully? So the top one here is, I own a home in Cully. I rent a home in Cully. I'm part of a church. And this is, I work in Cully. I own a business in Cully. And then the bottom 4 are illegible and also very small responded. So
I can do it.
Oh, cool.
I own a commercial property in. I used to live in Cully, but not and then it cuts off. I something, shop, walk, bike, visit, meet, eat. Okay, great.
Oh, this is.
And last, I commute through Cully probably everything. I commute through Cully, 1.1%.
Yes, it does say commute through Cully. It's actually easier to read it from a little bit further away. Fancy that. And so you can see the vast majority of the respondents were folks who own homes in Cully. The second was folks who work in Cully. And there's a demographic breakdown of the respondents. And that was actually an optional breakdown. Sorry, that was an optional question for folks to fill out. So that is the percentages based on who self-reported. And then we can go to the next slide. So this is where we get to the sort of key question that we had for the survey. So I'm not sure how up to speed all of you are with the process that we went through to create the Cully TIF district. But it actually started about 4 or 5 years ago now, and was led by community organizations that said we want to see if there's an opportunity to create a TIF district here in Cully that can help prevent gentrification and can stabilize existing residents and existing businesses. So that was the
Brian,
goal.
before you go farther, I just want to check with the room that would anybody like a brief explanation of what a TIF district is? Good. Okay, thanks.
Okay. And so we worked through community to sort of navigate the process to identify the priorities and the goals for the district, and that set the 30-year plan for the district. And then once the district was created about 2 years ago, the community leadership committee that I mentioned earlier was appointed, and they convened and started the action planning process. And we have now gotten to a stage where we've almost completed the action plan. And what they've identified is a series of priorities for both housing investments and for economic development or business investments. And the survey listed those, and then the question was basically, are folks in agreement that this continues to be aligned with what the vision for the Cully TIF district was and continues to be? Like, are these priorities going to continue to meet the needs of the community? Is essentially what the survey question was. And there was general support. 82% of respondents felt that the priorities continue to represent the needs and interests of folks who live here in Cully. We can go to the next slide. There was some other discussion in the survey, including providing some background information. People often wonder what tax increment finance resources, what the dollars can be used for. And there's restrictions on how they can be used. Those restrictions are placed in state law. And so we follow that law when we determine how we can spend the tax increment finance resources. And so things that are not eligible include things like rental assistance, commercial lease stabilization, renter support, utility and water assistance, and general safety like paying for security guards. The short of it is TIF dollars can only be used for physical improvements to the neighborhood. So if you're building something that's going to be essentially permanent, you can use TIF for that. If you're using, if you want to fund something that's operational, where it's like paying for programming or like activation, things like that, TIF typically cannot be used for those sorts of activities. And so really we say our shorthand is sticks and bricks. So some of the key types of programs that are available on the economic development side, include, one of the programs that we call is, that we have called our Prosperity Investment Program, or it's a PIP. And it's a grant that we make to small businesses that need to make improvements to the space where they're operating in order to be more effective in their business. So if it might be a retailer who needs to make some modifications to the storefront to improve the window displays, or make some changes to the back room to provide better storage, or any number of things. But those grants are $50,000 up to $50,000. And it's a direct grant to the business to help them make those changes. On the housing side, there's similar sorts of grants and programs. One of the grants on the housing side is the home repair program. So folks who own their homes and maybe don't have enough resources to make a significant repair that might be necessary, like maybe they need to repair their roof or their HVAC system is damaged in some way or just failing and it needs to be replaced. They could receive a grant from the Portland Housing Bureau to fund repairs to their home. And the idea is that the investment helps them stay in their home and not have to leave and not create a situation where the home becomes uninhabitable for some reason, for disrepair or something like that. Let's see. Okay, so this slide references comments that were made in the survey. So there was a section of the survey where folks could write in information, questions that they had, or they could say, I think, it's really important that we improve storefronts, or I think it's really important that we, support, homeowners in some way. And so we categorized all of those comments and aligned them with the kinds of priorities that were already identified in the action plan. And it includes things like incentivize development and leasing of empty buildings, support development of better food cart pods, new food cart pods, programs to increase access to renewable energy, and land banking to basically preserve developable properties in a way that allows the community to influence what ultimately gets built there. And then additional opinions that were shared included that some folks felt that the housing priorities should focus more on building and less on the things like the home repair program and those sorts of things. So some folks felt like more housing was needed rather than stabilizing the existing housing. And some folks also felt that the direction of supporting the mobile homes was not a priority that they felt should be emphasized. However, that continues to be something that we intend to implement in the action plan. So again, those are comments received as opposed to priorities identified in the action plan. We can go to the next slide.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
On the.
Annette, let me bring you the mic, please.
Previous slide. Could we just show it there? Based on this survey, it makes a statement support development of better food cart pods, new food cart pods. My understanding is that is not even TIF eligible types of work.
That's an excellent comment. So
correct.
TIF dollars cannot be used to fund the food cart pods themselves. Sorry, the food carts themselves. But a property where you want food carts to be located, if it needs improvements such as water, sewer, power, etc., those sorts of things, if it needs to be paved, in order to support the food carts, all of those types of expenses are TIF eligible.
Okay, so would it be fair to say the infrastructure for food carts?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
And Brian, just for a time check, I know I didn't give you a very long slot, but we have about 5 minutes left. Do you have more slides you want to get through, or could we take more?
There's like 2 slides. I'm
Cool, that's
more than happy to just go to questions.
Well, let me see, who has questions for Brian? Okay, you in the front.
I'm glad you're not planning to take mobile homes out of the action plan. That was, a big fact in the a big presence in the TIF plan that we wrote. I was on the exploration committee for 4 years, trying to make this happen. One thing that we were very, very sure of was that we wanted affordable housing to be permanently affordable housing. And I'm concerned about the amount of money that's being dedicated in the proposed 5-year plan for down payment assistance. That is not permanently affordable housing. You're making housing affordable to one person or one family, but it won't be affordable thereafter. And our priority was permanently affordable housing. So I think that our intention was that the money be invested in other programs. I know that down payment assistance is an existing program that has been available in other urban renewal areas forever. But we were really looking for other programs in this project.
Thank you for sharing that. As you know, since you were involved in the process, I was not involved in the exploration process. So that's excellent feedback for me to hear. And I'm more than happy to carry that back to PHP. So I'll make sure that they receive that feedback.
Do we have any more questions in the room? Any on Zoom, Aaron?
Negative.
Okay, then let's go to your last 2 slides.
Okay.
Disabled.
Oh, Susan maybe has one.
I think
Jack
it's
is disabled.
potential eligibility criteria. So one of the things that we also included in the survey was this idea of potential eligibility criteria. And the eligibility criteria is it's a very interesting element of the action plan, because it is the area where we are able to make sort of careful decisions about how the dollars are directly allocated. Like, so it's really comes down to who is going to receive the dollars. And so there are ways that you can provide guidelines for how, say, PIP grants that I mentioned earlier are actually allocated. For example, you could say, we only want to make PIP grants available to businesses that have been in Cully for 10 years or more. Or you could say 10 years or less. And by deciding that kind of eligibility criteria, it really starts to shape who is receiving the money first, so to speak, or who's at least eligible first. And so the feedback that we heard around eligibility criteria, in fact, drifted away from that concept, and folks weighed in on the kinds of projects that they wanted to see. And one of the things that came up was this publicly accessible community spaces. And another one was renewable energy. And so those are they're thematically interesting, but they're not necessarily programmatically targeted. And so we don't have programs that are specifically directed at renewable resources. There are other programs in the city that are through the Portland Clean Energy Fund. And we often work with PSEF, we often work with the Portland Clean Energy Fund collaboratively when we are funding projects. And PSEF dollars come in to cover renewables, and TIF dollars come in to close the gap in the capital stack. And then on the publicly accessible community spaces piece, I think this is an interesting request. Doesn't quite align with sort of the original vision. At some point in the future, it could, certainly if it were part of a larger project being developed, but as a standalone project, doesn't strike me as the kind of project that was envisioned by the folks that supported the creation of a TIF district.
Okay, I think you have one more slide.
Okay.
But we do have to go to our next topic. So
Okay.
sorry, we'd love to have you back.
Do I have a no?
You don't? Oh, we did it. Never mind.
Okay. And that's
only a little bit behind schedule. All right. Thank you. Oh,
Can I make a comment?
sorry, we don't have time on this one. Annette. Annette, can you talk to Brian?
Yeah.
Here. Also.
All right, please be brief.
I would agree. Thank you for this allowance. So when I look at this piece, this community feedback survey that has been done, you said by the piece, I just want to bring to voice like some of these things on this the survey. And originally you gave the stats on who participated in this survey. I think you gave, it was a very high number of homeowners. I want to make the statement that the intention of the Cully TIF district was very specifically to serve the needs of the underserved communities named specifically in the plan, the priority community. On homeowners. So there's been a disconnect on the themes that we're looking at versus the deep community engagement that was done for a period over 2 years to develop the plan to ensure that this co-creation, right, was brought forward by nonprofits who work and serve in the community to the city. And that deep community engagement was with the priority communities who this intended plan is to serve. So I'm taking this extra time to point that there's a disconnect on what we're going by and hearing, whose voice that is versus the intention of the plan. So I just wanted to say that out loud to everyone. Thank you so much.
And go ahead and respond if you'd like to.
So the community liaison took the lead on putting together this survey. I agree with you, and the survey statistics absolutely reflect exactly what you said. And at this stage in the process, the goal for this survey was to simply put the information out there, say this is where we've gotten so far, and we are not looking for this survey to heavily inform or really modify the priorities. It's really, this was did we follow through with the priorities the way it was originally envisioned? And the first question that we had, overwhelmingly, everyone, even the largely white homeowners agreed that we're still on track. And that was our goal for this survey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian, for joining our meeting. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Pauline, do you have what's that? Tonight? Oh, okay, I'll get over to that. Okay. All right, and for our last presenter, we have, we have, great, welcome. Sharon from PBOT and Paulina Salgado from INET talking about the 82nd Avenue Transit Improvement Project. I'll give the slides to him.
I'll start while Seth is pulling up the slides. I'm here to talk to you, Paulina Salgado from TriMet, here to talk to you about the 82nd Avenue Transit Project. We have some updates, but I'll go really quick.
It's gonna be a second, so just go ahead, I'll catch up.
I think everybody has heard about the project, but if you haven't heard, we're looking to replace the line 72 with the new FX system, like the one that we have on Division Street. The current line goes from Clackamas Town Center to Swan Island. And this new FX will go from Clackamas to Collie here at Las Adelitas. So that's where we're looking to have the terminus. This new service is going to bring big buses, like I mentioned, like the ones on Vision, is going to have the 60-foot long buses, is going to have signal priority, is going to have there's 3 doors on those buses, the front, the middle, and in the back, which makes it a lot easier for people to get in and get out of the bus. One of the things that we're doing to speed up the system is consolidating some of the stops on 82nd. So we're gonna have 68 stops along the line. And
Yep.
you could go to the next one. So this is the stops. I know it's pretty small to look at here, but we have a website, 82nd Avenue Transit Project. You can Google that and you will see the specific stops.
We're gonna share. Sure. Okay.
Great, thank you. And you can go to the next one. So some of the transit priority tools that we're looking at include stop balancing, like I mentioned, the consolidation of stops, transit signal priority, high capacity buses, modern well-lit stations with amenities. There's going to be real-time information at the stops. There's going to be safer crossing and increased access to stations. And with these tools, the bus itself is going to be able to go faster, 8 to 10 minutes faster than the current bus right now. We're also looking at additional tools, and one of those tools has been very controversial, which is BAT lanes, which is business and access and transit lanes. And we have Sharon from PBOT, and she's going to talk to that.
There, I'm Sharon Dalio. I'm with PBOT's Major Projects Group, and I'm the city's project manager for TriMet's 82nd Avenue Transit Project. So, as Paulina mentioned, I want to talk a little bit about BAT lanes. We're still studying them. There's been no decision made, and we're here to get your feedback and get your thoughts on what we know so far. We have looked at 2 scenarios, and they're kind of reflected here in these drawings. The one on the left is what we're calling SUMBAT, and it's essentially considering the BAT lanes, business access and transit lanes from north of Tillamook, all the way up to Lombard, and then in the southern section from Foster down to Clatsop. And then for the MORBAT, which is essentially BAT lanes for the extents of 82nd Avenue within the city of Portland. It's all the way from Lombard up to or down to Clatsop. So with both of these scenarios, we've studied what diversion would look like, meaning what would that do to traffic? Would traffic tend to take another route and try and cut through to avoid any congestion as a result? And what our modeling is showing is that both BAT options would have minimal diversion, kind of focusing on this neighborhood. There's some more locations to the south, but there would be minimal diversion expected to Northeast 72nd Avenue. And there are already planned improvements that are what we would typically recommend as mitigation for diversion. And I think that project has been previously shared with you all. The construction on those improvements is supposed to be starting either late 2025 or early 2026.
But what improvements? I'm not sure.
That's part of the 70s Greenway.
Oh, okay. Got it. Yes, we have had meetings on that.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, the last thing I wanted to say on this slide was that under the Moorbat scenario, we are seeing that some percentage of people would choose to basically take another route, especially during the busiest times of the day, so kind of the afternoon peak hours. Longer trips would move to 205. And then also during the busy times of day, we're seeing that some would go to Lombard and Gleason to use as accesses to get to 205. And so I think that was everything I wanted to make sure I said on this slide. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is kind of a summary of the comparison of what we've looked at, the current project design that Paulina described, and then the sum and more bat lanes. And so with this, essentially what we're seeing is that the Sunbat would make the bus a little bit faster, cars a little bit slower. The Moorbat would make the bus even more faster and cars even slightly more slower. We see similar incremental improvements in reliability and then pedestrian comfort along the corridor. Regarding reliability, it's something, we've got some specific data here for some of the speeds, but reliability is one that's really hard to model, but it's a really important consideration. And we do see that similar to the other, there would be some improved transit reliability with Sunbat and then more improved reliability with the Moorbat. And this is really important because what that means is the bus becomes more reliable. If the bus is always going to be 2 minutes late, it's always going to be 2 minutes late, and somebody can plan their schedule accordingly. So if they're using the bus to get to work, it's just something that they can count on always coming at that time, whether it's on time or whether it is a few minutes late. So a really important factor. And then the last thing that I have to speak to is the diversion percentages that are shown here are specifically to the busiest hours of the day. We have also been studying what it looks like for what we're calling daily diversion. So what would those percentages be for the entire day? And what we're seeing there is that the Sunbat would be 3% fewer cars on 82nd Avenue throughout the full day. And then the Moorbat would be 5% throughout the full day. So just kind of wanted to put that in perspective a little bit. I'm going to turn it back over to Paulina, and then I think we'll probably have some time for questions.
Thank you, Shannon. So, like I mentioned, the bat lanes have been a little controversial. And so how are we going to come up with a decision about bat lanes? So we have the Policy and Budget Committee for the project. And that Policy and Budget Committee is Director Melissa Williams is in that committee. We have ODOT, we have Clackamas County, we have council members Duncan Juan, Kristen Lewis, Sam or Chair Trimet sits in that committee, and we have a member from our Community Advisory Committee. So the project team had a recommendation about how to move forward into the 60% design. We're right now currently on 30% design, but we heard from this committee, Policy and Budget Committee, that we needed to have a more conversations around bat lanes. So what is going to happen next is that during the next couple months, this committee, the Policy and Budget Committee, we're going to provide, the project team is going to provide more information regarding technical information the engagement that we have done along the corridor. And they're gonna continue having this conversation to come up with a decision, probably maybe earlier next year. You could go to the next one. So what goes into making that decision? So we are gonna have the 30% design, and that's all the technical information that goes into it. The community input, we have been doing a lot of engagement around bad lanes since I think January, when we had an open house, we went canvassing. And right now we're doing one-on-one business meetings along the corridor. We're going in coordination with Privat, and we're just trying to really hear from the business owners about how they feel regarding bad lanes. We've been going to most of the neighborhood associations. We have Cully today, we have Sumner on Thursday. Next week we have Powellhurst. So I think we have been talking to like 10 or 11 neighborhood associations, because we just really want to make sure that we're hearing from everybody. So all of that combined is we're going to provide that information to the policy and budget committee, and together with the project team, we'll have make a decision, like I said earlier, next year. We could go to the next one. So this is kind of our schedule. We had a policy and budget meeting on November 7th. We have the YouTube video on our website if you would like to hear about how the conversation went. The next one is on December 12th, and it's going to be at PCC. It's normally, this one's going to be from 9 to 10. We're allowing space for public testimony. At the November 7th, we had a good turnout. We almost had 35 minutes for public testimony. So this is the time to provide us your feedback. We want to hear from you. This is why we're doing this, being here, talking to the community, because we want to hear from you. If you cannot be present to the meeting, you can submit written testimony. You could also do it online, because the meeting will be online. And we haven't decided the date for the January meeting, but we're hoping that by February, we will maybe not have one, in case, just depends how the conversation was. And that's the next one. So this is our website, and here you can look at the design proposal, and there is room to provide us your feedback. If you cannot go to any of these meetings, please provide us your feedback. We're putting all of this information into an engagement report that we are giving to the policy and budget committee. So all of this feedback is going to be heard by people by the project team and the policy and budget committee. Yeah, that was it. You can answer any questions.
Anybody in the room? Yes, absolutely.
I always have questions.
You do, man. It's great.
Yes, Mark. I guess that's my problem I had. It was the city of Portland. I always ask questions. One question saved the city $3 million, and I didn't get a penny. Anyways, what are you saying is that one of the four lanes on each side will be back, and there will be only 2 lanes on 82nd?
There will be two. Oh, thank you. So there will be 2 that are auto
Yes.
dedicated. The 2 outer lanes would be not just for bus, it would be also for any autos that are looking to turn into any driveway, anything along 82nd, turn on any street. So it's for anybody that is making a turn.
Okay, I drive 82nd once in a while, and it's slow with 4 lanes. It's congested with 4 lanes during a certain time of the day. Between 4 and 6, you miss dinner.
Thank you, and that aligns, what you're saying aligns with the numbers that we're showing with the diversion that would occur during those hours as a result to avoid the congestion.
Would a congestion like that get people a little bit nervous, upset and things like that? Wouldn't it spawn more traffic accidents?
Yeah.
So one of the things that we've been hearing when going to the neighborhood associations is that concerns about the diversion going into the streets. But like I mentioned, PBAT has been going to all of these neighborhood meetings and they're hearing that in order for the neighbors to feel more comfortable with the more bad lane scenario, they would like to have some calming traffic tools to slow down the traffic from the diversion coming into the streets. So I believe that that's something that PBAT would look at if we go with that scenario.
Yes.
Well, you don't have to worry about slowing down 82nd. But because it's usually during rush hours, it is very slow.
Else? Questions, Aaron? Do we have anyone else?
Like it.
Okay, then I have a question. Which I guess I have read a lot of news recently about the controversial bat lanes. And I would like to know how does the city, how does TriMet weigh feedback from businesses versus all the extensive public feedback that you got outside of, you know, the guy who owns 2 car washes and is in the news?
Yes, so we, not one like business or community input weights more than the other one. We're gonna, like I mentioned, package everything that we've heard from the neighborhood associations that we have been attending, from the one-on-one business owners who have attended. I just came from a town hall at Apano with the mayor, and of course the transit project came up. So we're everywhere right now. We're trying to hear from everybody from the community. So all of that, we're gonna put it together into a report, and then we're gonna provide that to the Policy and Budget Committee. And they will do a recommendation to TriMet and to the partners. But I wouldn't say that, oh, like the neighborhood association feedback weights more than the business on 82nd. Everything kind of goes together.
Or vice versa, and I'm sure you're reading the news, so we also recognize that there are very diverse opinions. And so we're trying to figure out how to navigate that. There's not going to be a solution that everybody's happy with. So trying to navigate a solution that meets the project values and is really kind of the best that we can do in the corridor.
I would ask, we've been asking like the neighborhood associations if maybe if you were to take a vote, like would you support the more bad lanes or the some bad lanes? How do people feel about it?
Right, I know that you did visit one of our, you've been very generous with coming to our meetings, Paulina. And one of those you did at least provide the survey, the general public survey.
Yeah, the one that we had in the spring.
Right. So we at least had opportunity for.
And there's still opportunity, so if you want to go to our website, please still provide us with your feedback. We want to hear from you.
And that's on the Kalina website, right?
That's one.
Oh,
Go to the previous one. But I can also send it to Zach if you want to, I don't know, an email or somewhere.
I can put it on the website, absolutely. It's not yet landing in the meeting announcement. Yeah, yes, yeah, please, yeah, good suggestion, thank you. Okay, then I have one more follow-up on that, again, from reading the news about the transit lanes. I saw some news, including I think from TriMet sources, maybe Jesse Stemler mentioning that budget might be a consideration in the project for the bat lane options, and I know you have presented here a couple of times to mention they don't all cost the same, cost more to build. I forget, more bat lanes than some bat lanes, those are the options, right?
Yeah.
Okay, how big a factor is budget, is that something you do?
So if you go to the previous slide, that one, so all of this is the opportunity and challenges. One of the challenges is cost, right? I think the more bad scenario costs more money versus the some bad things. So that's all of it that we're gonna put into consideration during some of the policy and budget meetings that we've had, specifically the one in November and September, because we didn't have one in October. Some of the committee members ask, what if we come up with the money for the more bad lanes from somewhere else, right? Not from the project itself, but like somewhere else. So all of that is something that we're looking at, but
I'll just add, so yes, the Moorbat is approximately $10 million more than the Sunbat. And one of the things that we will be navigating as we're working now toward the 60% design will be some value engineering. And what that means is looking at some of the other project components that maybe there's a way to make changes to find some savings. And one of the decisions that we'll be also talking to the policy and budget committee about is if there are savings, is that the place that you would recommend the money is spent, or would it be better spent on something else, like more sidewalk reconstruction or something else? So budget is a consideration as well as other corridor priorities along with it.
Is there any other bat lanes in the city of Portland that we?
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of great examples of bat lanes. There are some short segments on Division. There's MLK and Grand. There are bat lanes from, I can't remember the southern limit, it's right around Hawthorne, a little bit south of there. But going all the way up to about Broadway Weidler. There are some short segments of bat lanes there's a few sections on Burnside. I know there's some on Southwest Capitol Highway. Oh, Foster, I think and Hawthorne. At Chavez.
Where they took one lane away from the regular traffic?
Yes, yeah, MLK and Grant are the best example, I think, of where they took, in both cases, they took a vehicular lane and dedicated it to bat lanes.
So that's a 4-lane stretch. So they only took 25%, not.
That is true. Yeah.
Okay, Annette, I think I got your hand up. Okay, last question, close it out, please.
Okay, I'm trying to condense this. So when I think of the bat lanes, right, it's all about the timing, right? I mean, how fast the bus can get through. So and then I think like some of the funding, federal funding is it's related to, you gotta get the numbers down. I mean, the bus has to go through a certain pace in order to be able to have the eligibility for certain funds to come into the project. Are you following my train of thought?
And that actually, you're probably gonna answer this, but I'll say some things and then you can fix it all. That is actually, so with the core transit project that Paulina described, that meets the criteria for the federal funding. So with the transit signal priority and the stock consolidation and the at the bus stations where the bus doesn't have to lower at grade, I can't correct.
Level
boarding, all door boarding, though all of those add up to enough to have the it's a capital investment grant rating, and they all have achieved the rating for the federal funding. And while I have the mic, I just thought of two more corridors that are great examples. One of them is Burnside, from the Burnside Bridge to 12. But Cooch is one that was a 2-lane facility that is now 1 lane for autos and 1 lane for back, from 12th all the way down to Grand, I think is the western of that. So that's another. If I get every morning.
So this is what I think about it, if we can. It's like, all of this energy goes into community engagement, more and more so, right? I participated in the original focus group along with Zach on this piece. And I felt that it was really deep, worthwhile community engagement. So my piece is that, like, I hope that the final decision really sinks into that dollar investment of doing that community engagement, and then the information that comes out of that really holds fast and is not weighted, but it is like people are speaking, they're contributing. You don't want the community to lose faith, as I will say another people who spoke today, Peabody, who has done community engagement. Sorry, that's a sidebar. But right now, I really believe in this project because of the community engagement that's happened in the community folks who meet and wheel this out. So I just wanted to speak to that, like, listen to the community engagement, please. Because you invest, that's money and investment, and that goes up much further. So I love this graphic too, thank you.
Thank you, Micah. And yes, all of that community engagement is going to fit into that recommendation along with the other factors.
Great last comment, thank you. And thank you, surprise guest chair, right? Okay, and Paulina, for coming, really appreciate your time, and sorry I started being late, thanks for being flexible.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you all for who stuck to the. There's no adjournment procedure at PLC meetings, you don't have to follow our good night.
Comment? Can I comment?
Conversation, education, understanding.